Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode on J of All Trades. I've just received this Predator 20-ton lock splitter and I'm very excited about it because I've been using a 5-ton electric lock splitter, and although it served me very well, I needed an upgrade because it's really tough splitting those larger pieces of logs, and I think that this 20-ton is going to eat right through it. So today I'm going to unbox this lock splitter and I'll show you guys exactly how to assemble it, so I'll hopefully make your lives a little bit easier. One thing to mention here is that I ordered this online and it was delivered to my house by a truck, and it was on this pallet and it was actually tied down to this pallet. So they definitely do a good job of securing it on the truck. And here is how it looks when you open up the box. There's a wood frame around all the parts, and this wood frame is also connected to the pallet. Right at the top, I noticed there's 2 packages of hardware here, and there's also the lock splitter manual. And this tells you how to set everything up, all the parts, and all the instructions on how to start up. So here, you can see that these 2 packages are pretty straightforward here. Everything is all laid out in front of you, so it's easy to see. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove these 3 pieces of wood that's right at the top here, and this will give me easier access to all the parts that are in here. Once you've gotten the wood out of the way, you'll be able to start taking out some parts and laying it out. Now, I strongly recommend laying everything out on the floor first before you start putting it together, because this way it'll be easy to access everything and grab everything as you need it. One thing that I noticed in the bottom here, and this is probably the most tiniest thing in here, is this tool that they send with the package. So this is in here in case you need to tighten up your nuts and bolts, but I'll be using my own tools because it'll be much faster. As you start taking out more and more parts, everything just seems to get heavier and heavier. I guess that's a good sign for a heavy-duty lock splitter, because that is an indication that it's made out of good steel, so can't complain there. Now I'm just rearranging this entire package here just so I can get the larger items out, and the first thing you're going to notice is that I'm going to be ripping off all of this cardboard so I can get better access to all of this stuff. So here is the engine. This is the heart and soul of this lock splitter. It's a 6.5 horsepower gas engine for reliable power. I'll definitely be putting that to the test. You want to lay this somewhere safe and be careful not to drop it. This is a fluid tank that I'm taking out here, and you want to be careful while lifting this because it is heavy, and you want to just take your time, make sure you watch your back with these things, and if possible, I strongly recommend you getting a second person to just give you a hand to lift this stuff and also to help you to assemble it. For this last part here, I'm going to need to break this crate apart to remove the beam. This beam is extremely heavy and you want to be very careful with it. After removing these pieces of wood on the side, I'm able to slide this slowly and get it out of here. This is the heaviest part out of all of these parts. Now that we've gotten everything all laid out on the floor, this is what it looks like. These are all the parts that are all easily accessible here. So once we're ready to assemble everything, they're readily available for us to just grab it and go. Once again, I'm not going to be using the tool that came with this because I have my own tools that are more efficient and will work a lot faster. I strongly recommend you do the same thing to make your life easier. Now, in the manual, at the back of the manual, you're going to notice there's a parts list here. It tells you about every single part and exactly what number matches up with that part number. So here, you're going to notice that there's just a few part numbers that I'll be using to assemble this entire piece. So for example, in number 15 there, it says bolt M10 by 75, and there's 1 of those. So let's begin putting this together. First, you're going to grab the support leg and the tow bar. In this part, you're going to be attaching the support leg underneath the tow bar. Just pay close attention to the orientation of these parts and you should be fine. So here, you're going to notice that there's 2 holes here at the back, and we're going to be passing 2 bolts as well as using washers and lock nuts to secure this piece. So for the first hole at the top, we're going to be using a lock pin, which is here, and we're going to be taking this out and we're going to install it right into the first hole at the top. For the next part, we're going to be using an M12 by 75 bolt, and we're going to be putting that on the second hole. Next, we're going to be using the single flat washer here, and there's only one of them, so you can't miss it. And we're going to take that out and we're going to put that on here. Next, we're going to be securing that bolt with an M10 lock nut. Next, I'll be using a 17mm socket and an adjustable wrench with my impact gun, and I'll tighten up this nut onto this bolt. This is where using my own tools will make my life a little bit easier by working more efficiently and faster. Now it's time to attach the front tow bar here to the end of the tow bar using some bolts, washers, and lock nuts. For this part, we're going to be using two M12 by 75 bolts. Here we're going to line up the two holes for the front tow bar, and then we'll put our bolts in. Next, we'll remove two washers from this set of washers here, and we're going to put them on the bolts. Now we're going to use two M12 lock nuts, and we're going to secure it to the bolt. For this particular nut, I'll be using a 19mm socket with the adjustable wrench holding the bolt side. Next, we'll grab the fluid tank and we'll place it right here behind the tow bar. And we're going to be attaching the tow bar to a bracket on top of this fluid tank. And we're going to be using bolts, washers, and nuts to do that. Here we're going to be using two M12 by 80 bolts. Here we're going to line these two holes up, and then we'll slip the bolts right through until it gets out to the other end. Once it gets out to the other end, we'll use a flat washer and an M12 lock nut. Here again, I'm going to hold here with the adjustable wrench while using a 19mm socket to tighten up. Now it's time to install these 16-inch wheels. These wheels feel really solid and they make for easy transport. We're going to begin by taking this cap off. Here you're going to notice that there is a bearing in there. So this bearing can fall out, so we're going to put the cap back on this side, and we're going to flip it around and remove this cap, and we'll slide this onto the shaft. You can clearly see that it's well greased up there. Before we're able to install this wheel, we're going to need to remove this cover here, as well as a nut, a washer, and also a cotter pin. So here you can see that this is the nut here, and then you have this cotter pin that keeps that nut on there, and it prevents the nut from walking out. So first we're going to remove the cotter pin out of here by using a plier, and we're just going to pull it right out. And this will allow us to remove this nut and then put the wheel on there. We're also going to remove this washer right here. Now we're going to grab the wheel here and we're just going to slide it right in. And we're going to slide it until it goes right through that bearing there. Then we'll remove this plastic cap here. And now that the bearing is sitting where it needs to be, we'll just push it in the rest of the way. And we're flush inside now. You will get some grease on your fingers, there's just no avoiding that. Now that we have this in place here, we're able to now put on our washer right back in there. Then we'll put the nut in here as well. And we'll make sure we tighten up on this with the wrench while we leave the hole available for us to slip in the cotter pin. Before putting this in, you want to squeeze this together to make sure it's nice and close so it can go right through the hole. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time putting it through. We're gonna just bend this enough to lock it in place so it'll prevent this nut from walking out. Next, we're gonna take one of these axle caps here, and this is gonna go right over the hub here, and this will prevent any dust or debris from getting into the bearing and messing it up. To secure this to the hub, you could use a piece of wood like this, or you could use a rubber mallet, something that won't damage the hub. You'll then repeat this entire process on the other side to install the next wheel. Alright guys, so here we've come to probably the hardest part of this entire assembly, which is placing the beam assembly on top of the fluid tank and this tow bar. And for this part, you're going to need a second person because this thing is extremely heavy. Now, because I'm doing this by myself, I actually used a floor jack to help me lift this thing up high enough so I could slide it right onto the top of the fluid tank and the tow bar. But you're going to have to be extremely careful if you're using this method. For one, you're going to have to be able to balance this beam on a jack like this. And two, you're going to need to position the tow bar in place to be able to slide this beam right on there. If you can get a third person to help you do this part, that will be even better because that's how heavy this thing is. Any mistake here and it could really get you injured. Once you get this in place, you're going to use an M12 by 35 bolt on both sides of this and a washer with an M12 lock nut. To tighten up the nuts and bolt on this beam here, we're going to be using an 18mm socket directly up against the bolt head because this is not going to be able to fit on the nut side. And I'm holding back on the nut side with the adjustable wrench while using this socket on the bolt side. Now we're going to use a hinge pin to attach this beam to the fluid tank. And we're going to be sliding this pin straight through, and then we'll be securing it with an R pin. And this R pin looks like this. When you first start this out, I found the best way to do this is to actually turn this pin. And as you're rotating it, it's going to slowly go in. But because there's so much weight on it, you're going to need to use a little piece of wood like this and a little hammer, or you could use a rubber mallet directly on it, and you're going to slowly tap against the pin until it comes through on the other side. Then we'll secure this pin with this cotter pin here. We're just going to slide this in here and this will prevent that pin from coming out. Now we'll grab an O-ring and you're going to notice a hose marked fluid tank, and we're going to be using that threaded connector at the top of the fluid tank. And we'll put the O-ring right there and we'll use a wrench to tighten it up. So here is the hose, and this is the hydraulic hose for the fluid tank. And here we're going to remove this plastic cover on the threaded connector here. And before we can connect the hose, we're going to need to be removing this cover that's inside here with a flathead screwdriver. So we'll just take this out. And now we'll place this O-ring right here at the threaded connector. And you see that it fits perfectly inside of that opening there. And now we're going to take this hose and we're going to thread it right on here. Now it's time to install the engine. We'll need 4 M8 by 30 bolts. We'll need 4 M8 lock nuts. And we'll also need these 4 lock washers here. Now we're going to take the entire engine connecting plate here to the pedestal on the back of the fluid tank, and we're going to attach them using those bolts, those lock washers, and the nuts. One thing to point out is that this is really low to the ground, so you're going to need to position yourself in a way where you can be able to work and get this stuff in here. As you can see between this plate here, it's a little bit difficult getting this nut onto the bolt, but you'll have to just kind of finesse it in there and you'll be all set to go. For this part, I'm using a 13mm socket on the bolt side, and I'm holding the nut with an adjustable wrench here. Now it's a really tight spot, and it really pays off to use power tools here because it does it very quickly where you don't have to be in this position for a very long time. So this is where it really pays off to use your own tools, which are much faster and more efficient than the tool that comes with this. Next, we're going to be loosening this clamp on the return hose here. And I'm using a 5/16 socket to loosen this up. And then we'll connect this return hose over this fluid connector here on this pump. And we're then gonna tighten up on this hose clamp, and that'll secure it in place. Now it's time to take the second O-ring here, and we're going to be putting this O-ring in the connector for the hydraulic pump. So here there's a cover right here on this connector, and we're just going to drop this O-ring right here in place, and it fits perfectly in there. Then we'll take this hose, and here we're going to just walk it through. But before we walk it through, let's remove this cover out of here with this flathead screwdriver, and we're going to clear this out so it can be installed. Now when we're moving this hose, just gently walk it out, and you're going to notice that it's marked pump, and we're going to be installing this right on here, and then we'll tighten it up with our adjustable wrench. Now it's time for the last part of this assembly, and that's inserting the log cradles. And we're going to be inserting this into the brackets on the sides of the beam. Now here on the center piece of this cradle, you're going to notice there's a hole there, and that is for a cotter pin to secure this in place. Now we're going to remove those two cotter pins and install them. There is some Teflon as well included, just in case you want to use that on the connectors if you have any leaks. So just keep that in mind. If you have any leaks from your hydraulic fluid, you can always use that Teflon. Here we're just going to bend these in place, and that'll keep these secured so they don't come out. And that's it, guys. We have fully assembled this 20-ton log splitter. And I am so excited, and I can't wait to fire this thing up and give you guys a little review on how it performs. Stay tuned for an upcoming video soon that will show you how to put in all the fluids into these tanks, like the gas, the oil, all the hydraulic fluid. And also I'm gonna go through the operation of this machine and how to start it up, fire it up, and what's the best way and best practices for maintaining this as well. I hope that this video has made it much easier for you guys to assemble this thing, and I hope that you find this video to be valuable. If you like videos like this, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel so you can continue to get more videos like this one. And I'll see you guys on the next one.